June 20th, 1943. 25,000 feet over Bremen, Germany. The engines are already screaming at full power, a constant metallic roar that vibrates through bone and teeth. Inside the aluminum skin of the B-24 Liberator, the air is thin, bitterly cold. Frost creeps along the edges of the cockpit windows as First Lieutenant James Callahan grips the yoke with gloved hands that have long since gone numb. Below him, the gray smudge of northern Germany sharpens into factories, rail yards, flak towers. And everywhere he looks, forward, left, right, there are bombers. Endless bombers. Hundreds of them. Long, boxy silhouettes with twin vertical tails stretching across the sky in disciplined formation. The Liberator earned its nickname for range and payload, but what strikes Callahan now isn't performance, it's quantity. "You could walk across their wings today," his co-pilot mutters over the intercom, half awed, half terrified. Black bursts of flak blossom around the formation like malignant flowers. A bomber 2 ships ahead takes a direct hit. A wing folds. The aircraft drops out of formation, spiraling toward the clouds below, trailing smoke and fire. Callahan forces himself not to look for parachutes. He has a job to do. What he doesn't know, what none of the men in the sky can see, is that thousands of miles away in the flat farmland of southeastern Michigan, another bomber is already nearing completion. Its fuselage is being riveted. Its wings are sliding into place. Its engines are waiting on a moving line of steel rollers. And in less than an hour, another will follow. Back in 1941, before Pearl Harbor, before the skies over Europe turned black with aircraft, the United States Army Air Forces faced a problem that no amount of courage could solve. They didn't have enough airplanes. The doctrine of daylight precision bombing demanded mass, not dozens of bombers, but hundreds flying together, absorbing losses and still delivering enough explosives to shatter German industry. Britain was bleeding aircraft faster than it could replace them. Germany was still outproducing nearly everyone. America had factories. What it didn't yet have was scale. The B-24 Liberator was supposed to help fix that. Designed by Consolidated Aircraft, it could fly farther and carry more bombs than the B-17. But it was also complex. High aspect ratio wings, tricycle landing gear, intricate fuel systems. Traditional aircraft plants simply couldn't build enough of them, fast enough. In early 1942, the War Department turned to an unlikely man for help. Henry Ford. Ford was 79 years old, a legend, a relic, the pioneer who had turned automobiles into appliances, who had once boasted that he could teach a man to do any job in minutes. He had never built a bomber before, but Ford believed something radical, that airplanes could be built like cars, not handcrafted, not individually assembled, but flowing, continuous, relentless. The site chosen was called Willow Run, a quiet stretch of farmland near Ypsilanti, Michigan. When construction began in April 1941, it was still little more than fields and dirt roads. Within months, steel frameworks rose from the ground. Concrete poured day and night. Rail spurs were laid. Power lines marched across the landscape. By sheer square footage, it would become the largest factory in the world. Inside, the building stretched over a mile long. Long enough, workers joked, that you needed a bus to get from one end to the other. But jokes faded quickly once production began. Nothing like this had ever been attempted. At first, it was chaos. Subassemblies arrived late or wrong. Blueprints conflicted. Workers, many of them women, farmers, or teenagers, had never seen an airplane, let alone built one. The early Liberators rolled off the line slowly, painfully. Critics in Washington whispered that Willow Run was a failure. Henry Ford did not argue. He reorganized. He brought in Charles Sorensen, the man who had perfected Ford's moving assembly lines. Stations were broken down into brutally simple tasks. One man drilled, another riveted, Another sealed. Parts were standardized. Tools were redesigned so mistakes were physically impossible to make. The bomber did not move around the factory. The factory moved the bomber. By mid-1943, the line began to flow. Fuselages advanced inch by inch. Wings arrived fully assembled from parallel lines. Engines were mounted with practiced speed. Wiring harnesses snapped into place. Paint dried under forced air. Inspectors checked and rechecked, knowing lives would depend on their signatures. Outside, the airfield filled with completed Liberators. Olive drab, fresh, gleaming, waiting for test pilots to take them into the Michigan sky. Back over Europe, Lieutenant Callahan's formation turns for home. They've dropped their bombs. The flak has thinned. 2 empty positions gape where aircraft once flew. Losses are expected. Replacement is assumed. Neither assumption would be possible without what was happening at Willow Run. By early 1944, the factory reached a rhythm so precise it bordered on the unreal. 1 bomber every 59 minutes, day and night, shift after shift. Aluminum becoming aircraft at a pace the world had never seen. And as the sky over Germany filled with Liberators, the air war itself began to change. January 15, 1944, Willow Run, Michigan. The whistle blows at 11:58 p.m., a sharp, metallic scream that echoes down the mile-long corridor of steel and light. The night shift pours onto the factory floor as the day shift peels away. Coats already pulled on, faces gray with exhaustion. There is no pause. There cannot be. A Liberator sits at Station 32, its fuselage bare aluminum, cold to the touch. In exactly 59 minutes, it must move. Mary Kowalski tightens her scarf and steps into position, pneumatic rivet gun already humming in her hands. She had been sewing dresses in Detroit 2 years earlier. Now she drives rivets into combat aircraft that will fly farther than she has ever traveled in her life. "Ready!" she shouts. The line moves. Steel rollers clatter beneath the bomber as it inches forward. Overhead, cranes glide silently, lowering engines that weigh more than a family car. Sparks burst like fireflies as welders sealed joints. The smell is oil, hot metal, ozone, a scent that never leaves your clothes no matter how many times you wash them. This is not craftsmanship in the old sense. No one here builds a whole airplane. Mary installs exactly 14 rivets in exactly the same place, hundreds of times a night. She does not need to see the sky to know where this bomber is going. Germany. By 1944, Willow Run employs more than 42,000 workers. Women make up nearly half the workforce. Many have husbands, brothers, sons already overseas. Others will soon. The line does not care. Every task is timed. Every motion studied. If one station falls behind, the entire flow is threatened. Supervisors watch stopwatches. Engineers patrol with clipboards. When a tool breaks, a replacement arrives before the machine cools. Above it all, lights burn without mercy. Henry Ford rarely visits now. He doesn't need to. The system runs on its own momentum, an industrial organism feeding on steel, rubber, and human endurance. When reporters come through, they stare in disbelief as bombers advance like cars once did, nose to tail, unstoppable. One reporter asks how it's possible. A foreman answers without looking up. Because stopping costs lives. Across the Atlantic, those lives are already being spent. February 20th, 1944. Big week. Lieutenant Callahan is back in the air, this time toward Leipzig. The sky is crowded again. B-17s and B-24s together now, escorted by long-range fighters that stay with them deeper than ever before. The Germans are waiting. Messerschmitt Bf 109 slash through the formation. Focke-Wulfs follow. Tracers streak past the cockpit like burning wires. Callahan watches another Liberator absorb hits that would have killed lighter aircraft. It staggers, but stays airborne. For now. When they land in England, Ground crews count the holes. They count the empty bunks. The briefing officers speak in calm voices about acceptable losses. What no one says out loud is that the losses are being outrun. Behind the scenes, German intelligence is panicking. Reconnaissance photos show American bomber streams growing thicker, not thinner. Factories destroyed 1 month are rebuilt the next, and hit again. Fighter pilots report shooting down aircraft only to meet more on the following mission. Interrogated German prisoners begin asking the same question. How many of these do you have? The answer, though never spoken, is written in Michigan steel. Back at Willow Run, winter grips the plant. Snow piles against the massive walls. Inside, it might as well be another world. The line has reached full maturity. At precisely 2:41 a.m., a completed B-24 rolls off final assembly. Inspectors swarm it. Control surfaces are tested. Engines are run up, one by one, their thunder rattling windows miles away. A test pilot climbs aboard before dawn. At 3:38 a.m., another bomber takes its place. 59 minutes. The record is posted on a board near the entrance. Workers glance at it as they pass, some with pride, others with quiet disbelief. No factory on Earth has ever done this. None may ever do it again. Mistakes still happen. When they do, investigations are brutal and immediate. A loose fitting here could mean a fuel leak at altitude. A missed seal could mean fire. The workers know this. They talk about it in hushed voices during coffee breaks. That last exactly 7 minutes. Mary finishes her shift at 6 a.m. Her hands ache. Her ears ring. She steps outside into the gray Michigan morning as another shift streams past her, heading in. The line does not stop for sunrise. By spring of 1944, the impact is undeniable. The 8th Air Force can replace entire groups in weeks. Losses at Schweinfurt, Regensburg, and Berlin no longer threaten the campaign. Bombers are no longer precious. They are plentiful. German planners finally understand the truth. They are not fighting an air force. They are fighting a factory, and that factory is winning. June 6, 1944. Southern England. The morning air is already shaking before dawn breaks. Engines warm in unison, thousands of them. A low thunder rolling across airfields carved into the English countryside. Ground crews move quickly, deliberately, checking fuel lines, bomb shackles, control cables. Painted invasion stripes gleam on aluminum skins still stained with oil and exhaust. Lieutenant James Callahan climbs into yet another Liberator. He has stopped counting missions. On the briefing board, the date is circled in red. D-Day. The bombers will not be hitting factories today. Their targets are rail junctions, bridges, coastal gun batteries, anything that could slow what is about to come ashore in Normandy. The plan demands something terrifying in its scale. Relentless air cover. And the aircraft are there. Hundreds of B-24s line the runways, wingtip to wingtip. More weight beyond them. Callahan exchanges a glance with his crew as the engines turn over, one after another. The sound is familiar now, almost comforting. They roll. As the bomber lifts into the pale sky, Callahan realizes something strange. For the first time since he arrived in England, he does not feel the familiar weight of scarcity. If his aircraft is lost today, there will be another tomorrow. If a group is shattered, it will be rebuilt. It changes how a man flies. Back in Michigan, Willow Run has reached a different kind of battlefield tempo. Production does not slow for D-Day. If anything, it accelerates. The demand for aircraft is insatiable. Bombers for Europe, the Mediterranean, the Pacific. The Liberator is everywhere now, from Ploesti to Burma. The line moves through the summer heat. Windows are cracked open. Fans roar uselessly. Workers wipe sweat from their eyes and keep moving. Management introduces cooling breaks, salt tablets, rotating stations, anything to keep the pace without breaking the people. New faces appear weekly: farm boys, housewives, recently graduated high schoolers. Each is trained in hours, not weeks. Each becomes a cog in a machine that no longer depends on individuals. This is Henry Ford's final, unsettling triumph. By late 1944, Willow Run has produced over 6,000 B-24s, more than any other plant in history. Combined with other factories, the total will exceed 18,000 Liberators by war's end. The numbers defy comprehension. German intelligence stops trying to count. In the skies over Europe, the effect is brutal. German fighter units are worn down not by tactics alone, but by arithmetic. Pilots scramble day after day, facing formations that seem to replenish overnight. Experienced aces are lost. Replacements arrive with fewer hours, less training, and no illusion about their odds. Flak crews fire until barrels glow red. It is not enough. A captured Luftwaffe officer later describes the moment he understood the war was lost. It was not a battle, or a speech, or a bombing raid. It was watching American bombers assemble. They came like a conveyor belt, he says. When one stream ended, another began. At Willow Run, the war feels distant but ever-present. Black-bordered telegrams arrive. Names are whispered. A foreman disappears from the line for 2 days, then returns thinner, quieter. No one asks why. Mary Kowalski pins a photograph to her locker, her younger brother in an Army Air Forces uniform, grinning beside a bomber's nose art. She does not know if it is a Liberator built here. She suspects it might be. The thought keeps her hands steady. On September 24, 1944, Willow Run achieved something almost obscene in its efficiency. The line briefly surpasses its own record, 1 bomber every 58 minutes. The number is corrected the next day. 59 minutes is the official claim. 59 is believable. 58 sounds like boasting. The factory does not boast. It produces. March 1945. Over the Rhine. Callahan flies his final missions as the ground war surges forward beneath him. Bridges are collapsing. Columns are retreating. Resistance is crumbling. The bomber streams face lighter opposition now, but they still fly in overwhelming mass. He looks out at the formation and wonders, not for the first time, where they all came from. The answer lies thousands of miles west, in a building longer than some towns, where a line once refused to stop. When the war ends in May, Willow Run slows for the first time in years. The lights dim. The noise fades. Bombers sit unfinished on the line, their war no longer needed. The factory that had outpaced death finally rests. August 14, 1945, Ypsilanti, Michigan. The news crackles over the radio just before noon. Japan has accepted the terms of surrender. Inside Willow Run, the reaction is not immediate cheering. For a moment, there is only stillness, a strange, unfamiliar pause that ripples down the mile-long factory like a held breath. Machines continue to hum. A fuselage inches forward on its rollers. Habit is stronger than celebration. Then someone shuts off a motor. Another follows. Gradually, the sound that defined 4 years of life here, the pounding, grinding, roaring heartbeat of war production, begins to fade. Workers look at one another, unsure what comes next. Some smile, some cry, some simply sit down where they stand. The line stops. For the first time since 1942, no bomber is scheduled to replace the one at the final station. Mary Kowalski removes her gloves and flexes her fingers. They ache less than they used to. She walks the length of the floor, past empty jigs and silent cranes, seeing the factory as if for the first time. Without motion, it feels impossibly large. A cathedral built to an idea that no longer exists, an idea that saved a world. Across the Atlantic, Lieutenant James Callahan is no longer flying combat missions. His Liberator sits on a hard stand, paint faded, nose art-chipped, scars still visible beneath hurried wartime repairs. He runs a hand along the fuselage, feeling rivets placed by hands he will never meet. He survived 27 missions. Many did not. The bombers that filled the skies did not win the war alone. Men fought and died on beaches, in forests, in frozen fields and burning cities. But without the flood of aircraft and without replacements arriving faster than losses, the strategy collapses. Courage becomes irrelevant without continuity. Willow Run provided continuity. After the war, the factory's legend spreads. Photographs show bombers nose to tail, stretching beyond the horizon. Headlines repeat the number again and again, as if saying it enough times will make it understandable. One bomber every 59 minutes. Historians will later argue over what mattered more: tactics or technology, generals or geography. But none will seriously dispute the role of American industrial power. The arsenal of democracy was not a metaphor. It was a building. Henry Ford does not live to see Willow Run's final reckoning in history. He dies in 1947, his reputation complicated, his legacy immense. He never claims credit for winning the war. He does not need to. The numbers speak. By the end of production, Willow Run has delivered thousands of Liberators to the front lines. Aircraft that crossed oceans, bombed refineries, severed rail lines, and carried the war deep into enemy territory. Aircraft that overwhelmed defenses not by brilliance alone, but by inevitability. Germany could shoot them down. It could not stop them from coming. Years later, the factory will be repurposed. The line will vanish. Grass will reclaim parts of the land. New generations will pass without knowing what once happened there, what it sounded like when the future arrived every hour on the hour. But for those who were there, on the line, in the sky, the memory never fades. The moment when war became math. The moment when a factory proved that modern war would not be decided only by bravery or genius, but by who could build faster than the enemy could destroy. And somewhere in the silence that followed, the echo of a line that never slept still lingers.